Hello, folks. I'm Detroit Miracle. Yes, and indeed. Right now, I am here to review the trailer for the 2004 movie called Blade Trinity. This particular film is the third in the Blade sequence of films, of course. And it is not only that, it is the one where Blade goes up against Dracula. Indeed, in this particular film, the origins of Dracula differ from the other origins of Dracula seen in other films and programs. For instance, this Dracula is supposed to be thousands of years old, unlike the other Draculas that are said to be 400 or 500 years old. This particular Dracula is as old as ancient Sumeria, so his origins date back that early in terms of him being the original vampire, of course. This version of Dracula is a bit diminished in terms of overall powers because he doesn't have all of the sorcery and sorcerer abilities of the other Draculas in regards to him being able to conjure spells, morph into smoke, and appear in dreams and other things. So he's quite diminished, but nevertheless, this Dracula is very powerful, and Blade goes up against him. Initially in the film, Blade Trinity, the vampire races are terrified of Blade. They see their end being near, so they try to find Dracula. They search for him, and then they catch a break and awaken him, of course, and they brought him back to fight Blade, of course, because Blade is something that they can't overcome. So they awaken Dracula and they tell him about Blade, and Dracula seems to be impressed with this Blade because he's heard all of Blade's stories, and he knows that Blade has killed hundreds, if not thousands, of vampires, of course. So the vampire race initially tried to frame Blade for murders. They say that he murdered a lot of humans, but we know he killed vampires or familiars. So I recently sat down to review this trailer in which I had already saw the movie for, to rekindle that past experience and to bring it to your very listening enjoyment, of course. So ready or not, here we go. All right, the film now starts off at night and it shows speedy motion. Now, people are shown talking on a TV program about vampires. They're trying to dispel the rumor that vampires exist. They are really familiars. They are very aware of vampires, but they're trying to tell the rest of the world that vampires don't exist. But instead, they bring up Blade, who they describe as a psychopath, who's out there killing who he believes to be vampires, of course. But so they are a part of the frame up. Now it shows Blade now. He's of course dressed in his vintage Blade costume, and he's out slaying vampires. Of course, now they go back to the TV program where they were giving descriptions on Blade. They have photographs of him and they have made him public enemy #1. I think he's on the FBI's most wanted list. So in this particular film, it shows at the start that the FBI and police are hunting Blade down. Then Blade, of course, he accidentally kills a human being in which he thought was a vampire, and it was on videotape. And they got Blade's face, his description, they got the murder scene, they got the act of murder. And then, of course, the police and feds close in on Blade and Whistler. Whistler doesn't survive, but Blade does. So the FBI takes him to the FBI headquarters and, of course, interrogate him. Now a female vampire is shown. She's a lead character in the film. Of course, she's a prominent vampire, much like the other prominent vampires in the other Blade movies were. And now Blade is shown handcuffed to a chair. He's handcuffed, and then a rescue team comes in to rescue him. They're shown doing so. They are also vampire hunters called the Night Stalkers. So now Blade is shown fighting the vampires that have arrived in the FBI headquarters. They posed as other FBI agents, but they were really vampires that were responsible for trapping Blade, of course. Now the rescue team is shown as a guy and a woman. The guy is being played by Ryan Reynolds, and he plays a Night Stalker called Hannibal King. The female vampire villain seems to know who Hannibal King is because she yells out his name. And Triple H is playing a vampire lead who's her brother. Now Blade is shown kicking him through a wall or something, or through a metal door. Now they're trying to escape the headquarters and they're fighting along the way. Now Blade is shown suddenly soaring through a roof opening. He has to go look for his sword, in which he forgot. Now they escape the building. It's nighttime. They run outside and they look up, and Blade suddenly jumps out of a tall building window. He jumps from something that looks like 20 stories up, and he lands on his feet, of course, and he has his sword in his hand. Okay, now they're showing the origins of this Dracula, of course, and Hannibal King is describing him as someone who was born perfect, who didn't have to evolve. So he's supposed to be the strongest vampire that Blade has ever fought on screen, of course. All right, they're going to more Blade kill scenes where he's killing multiple vampires with his cool weapons. Okay, now finally they reveal Dracula, but in this movie they call him Drake. And now Blade is shown engaging Drake with a sword. They're having sword play, of course. This Dracula still is much more mightier and powerful than Blade ever was. But Blade is able to hang with him, of course. All right, folks, I'm not going to spoil the rest of the movie for those who haven't seen it. Thank you for tuning in, and go out and see Blade Trinity if you haven't. Indeed.